Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 11. Astounding Sword Technique, Superior Embarks. Note, as this blade technique carried no attribute, great talents could yield it to summit, making it on par with the drive of an onyx tier moderate skill. He did not find anything he was fond of among the ice and fire path skill techniques. Although there were plenty of moderate and superior choices, none of them suited him. Not only did he discover the astounding sword technique that was on the side by chance, but it was also an amber tier superior skill. This will be it then. Li Lingtian's face bore a smile. The characters played on the television back in his past life often carried themselves with poise wielding a sword. Influenced by this tradition, he had taken more of a liking towards sword techniques. The requirement for great talent was not a big deal. With his past life's wisdom, he could grasp all skills and techniques at first glance and become adept upon cultivation. The fact that he had cultivated the breeze technique after 20 minutes was proof of that. If it were not for the breeze technique, he would have died. "Senior, I want this astounding sword technique," Li Lingtian uttered with respect as he pushed forth the astounding sword technique towards the elder. Young man, I would advise you to change this skill. This astounding sword technique may be a superior skill, but rarely anyone in Skycloud sect could master it. Based on your talent, you'll find that a moderate skill will be more in your favor. The elder looked at Li Lingtian in the eye after taking a glance at this manual. It was overambitious for a Tier 5 warrior to select a superior skill. Moreover, the astounding sword technique was cultivated by many, yet only a handful had mastered it. In the end, this astounding sword technique was barely anyone's choice. "Thank you, Senior, but I'd like to try to comprehend it. If it doesn't work, I'll change to another." Li Lingtian revealed a smile as he politely said. As this was a superior sword skill, it might not work for other people. However, for someone from the 21st century, this was not a big deal. "Well, that's up to you. It'll be 200 mediocre spiritual stones." Although Li Lingtian did not listen to his advice, the elder said nothing further. The words of a wise man often rang true. This young man would come to appreciate the elder's kind words when he comes to a standstill in cultivation. "Thank you, Senior." Li Lingtian fished out 200 mediocre spiritual stones from his storage sack and handed them over to the elder before he left with the astounding sword technique. Now that his pocket of 800 spiritual stones was lighter by 200, he finally realized the importance of spiritual stones. When he was back in his room, he began to study the astounding sword technique. The act of exchanging skills and techniques with spiritual stones in Skycloud sect was to put pressure on the disciples and create a sense of competitiveness. Yet out there, this superior sword technique would not be worth just 200 spiritual stones. It was not heart-wrenching for Li Lingtian to fork out 200 spiritual stones, even though the inner vital and materials of a level 6 demonic beast combined was only worth 10 spiritual stones. He would not have gained that many inner vitals and spiritual stones if it were not for Yang Kongxiao's storage sack. Astounding sword technique, a superior skill. Cultivated to its summit, its drive is comparable to an onyx tier moderate skill. There are 3 forms, also known as the astounding 3 forms. The first form is bright moon in soft breeze. Cultivated to its summit, its drive is comparable to an onyx tier inferior skill. The second form is vast obscure extermination. Cultivated to its summit, its drive is comparable to an onyx tier moderate skill. The third form is thousand shadows of fluttering flowers. Cultivated to its summit, its drive is comparable to an onyx tier superior skill, mastering the swordsmanship of the universe. It took him a brief moment to read through the astounding sword technique. The first 2 forms drove a huge force, and even though others may not be capable of cultivating it, it was a different story for him. However, he was not in the state to decipher the third form, as it bore profound wisdom that surpassed any drive or power. In the next 2 days, Li Lingtian continuously went over the bright moon in soft breeze. Not only did he show no signs of slowing down in those 2 days, but he even forewent the heaven and earth reincarnation. Bright moon in soft breeze. The sword strikes like a breeze, moving swifter than the naked eye. The moment the bright sword flashes passes when the enemy sees blood. Li Lingtian gazed at his long sword. The energy around him started to turn strange, it was as if he was a sharp sword. Following a faint noise of something breaking the void, the gleaming shadow that embodied a bright moon moved in a flash, cutting through the air. Rip! As the sound echoed in the air, a 3-foot-tall rock was split into half while the long sword in Li Lingtian's hand remained as though it was never swung. If a warrior spirit was here, they would surely be able to catch a glimpse of Li Lingtian pulling the sword at such extreme speed. Tisk, it is indeed a superior skill. It is already producing such force when I've only just mastered it and am barely at completion. I wonder what kind of warrior would be able to withstand this strength if I pair it with my breeze motion technique. Li Lingtian smiled at the work of his masterpiece. His decision to choose the astounding sword technique was the right one. While he was deep in cultivation, the fearsome Lan Hai came face to face with a young man in his 20s who was outside a single cultivation room in the inner section. Brother Hui, you have to vengeance me. My cultivation levels crippled. Hacking with cough, Lan Hai told the young man before him. He had harbored great hatred towards Li Lingtian for defeating him, a tier 9 peak warrior, with a single move. You piece of trash, you can't even defeat a tier 5 warrior. You bring shame to our Lan family. Casting a side glance at Lan Hai, Lan Binhui replied with disdain. Although he was surprised that a tier 5 warrior could defeat a tier 9 peak warrior, Lan Binhui did not see any disciples, who were a warrior and below, a threat. I was ambushed. There were 4 of them. With a sour expression on his face, Lan Hai dared not object, as it was indeed humiliating to be defeated by a tier 5 warrior. So, he insisted that he was ambushed. I'm an inner sect disciple. I can't go against the rules and attack a lowly disciple unless it's outside of the sect, or in the life or death canyon. Lan Binhui coldly blurted. It was embarrassing for a Lan family genius to be ambushed, and by a few ordinary disciples too. Nevertheless, his hands were tied because of the sect rules. This is easy. I can get them to the life or death canyon. You. Brother Hui, did you forget about Yang Tianchen and the few? Alright, I'll help you cripple them, but you'll have to hand over the blue fleecing fruit as an exchange. I can't cultivate any more, so this blue fleecing fruit is for you. Lan Hai let out a bitter smile before he unwinded his storage sack and handed over a knuckle-sized fruit. This fruit was a treasure amongst warrior for its ability to advance warriors to a higher state. Senior Brotherly, oh no, Senior Brotherly. Li Lingtian was busy cultivating when he heard a familiar voice. So, he turned to walk out of the room before he saw Chen Yun hurriedly running towards him. What's the matter? Li Lingtian was confused by Chen Yun's presence. How did Chen Yun find him here? Someone has captured junior sister Shang Guan to the life or death canyon. Chen Yun quickly said as he breathed heavily. Seeing Li Lingtian's expression, he felt extremely anxious. Shang Guan linger? Who captured her? Taken aback, Li Lingtian had a bad feeling about this. It must be someone who had an agenda against him, or else Chen Yun would not know to find him here. I don't know myself. They said to inform you to go there, or else they'll cripple junior sister Shang Guan in the life or death canyon. They even told me about where you live. Chen Yun described everything that had happened earlier. He was in cultivation when a whistling arrow was fired at him. Attached to it was a note, depicting Shang Guan Linger's whereabouts in the life or death canyon. If they wanted her alive, Li Lingtian had to move forth to the canyon. Li Lingtian's location was also written clearly on the note. Life or death canyon, they're seeking death. Li Lingtian coldly snorted before he strode out. Of course, he was well aware of the life or death canyon. It was a place where fellow disciples settled their personal vendettas, and fights that occurred in the canyon were not bound by the sect rules. Although it was unclear who was messing with him, a few people came into Li Lingtian's mind, and one of them was Yang Tianchen, the Yang family's genius disciple. He had already made up his mind that as long as the Yang family stayed away, he would not pick on the Yang family disciples. However, he would teach them a lesson for getting on his nerves. Chapter 12. Soon, Li Lingtian and Chen Yun arrived at the Life or Death Canyon. Cliff-faced on both sides, the canyon was 100 yards wide in the middle and a popular spot for disciples to cultivate on the outside. Inside the Life or Death Canyon, several people were waiting, and Shang Guanlinger was one of them. "Good for nothing, I didn't think you'd have the guts to come." The loud taunting voice attracted many cultivating disciples to catch sight of a young man walking out. "Yang Tianchen, so it is you." Faced with the Tier 8 warrior Yang Tianchen, Li Lingtian carried himself with ease, showing no fear. He could crush a Tier 9 warrior with a single fist, let alone a Tier 8 warrior. "Chen Yun." At that time, another voice was heard. It was loud and clear, so Li Lingtian knew who it was without looking. Xue Da's tall figure emerged before he swiftly made his way by Li Lingtian and stood alongside Chen Yun. The trio faced Yang Tianquan's team, unflinching at Yang Tianquan's cultivation level. At the front of the canyon, Li Lingtian stared at the three outer sect disciples who were Tier 6 warriors. Shang Guanlinger seemed to be under a spell, as her eyes were blank, as if she did not recognize Li Lingtian and the rest. "Li Lingtian, you've entered the Life or Death Canyon. Today's the day you die." Then out came two youths who were not far from Shang Guanlinger, and Li Lingtian could recognize one of them. It was Lan Hai, who he had crippled, while the other was not a familiar face. However, he defected a slight chill from that person's life force. This person was a Tier 9 peak warrior, a step away from becoming a warrior spirit. In other words, he had one foot in the warrior spirit state. "Did you see us enter the Life or Death Canyon?" Xue Da shouted. In a flash, he distanced himself from the scarlet boundary line, and Chen Yun retreated too. Fights were forbidden as long as they did not exceed the Life or Death Canyon's red border. "Senior brotherly, come out quickly." Xue Da and Chen Yun warned Li Lingtian in a panic, but Li Lingtian calmly laid his eyes on the young man beside Lan Hai. They would not be able to do anything to him if he left, but they would not let Shang Guanlinger go as well. "Let her go and I'll enter the Life or Death Canyon." Upon saying this, Li Lingtian walked step by step into the canyon and drew nearer to Shang Guanlinger. Stimulating his divine mindfulness, he found that Shang Guanlinger was temporarily under the control of a soul spell. "A good-for-nothing sure has balls, but don't think for a second that any of you will be able to leave this place." Lan Binhui let out a sinister smile as he watched Li Lingtian set his foot in. After all, he was just a Tier 5 warrior. It was well worth the exchange of a blue fleecing fruit for the lives of several lowly disciples. With that, violent force surged, and immediately, two noises were heard coming from the back of Li Lingtian. Chen Yun and Xue Da were knocked off their feet, which caused them to fall inside the Life or Death Canyon. At this point, many disciples had encircled outside the Life or Death Canyon to take a peek inside. They grieved for Li Lingtian's group. Aren't the two Tier 5 and one Tier 6 warriors throwing their lives away by going into the Life or Death Canyon? Getting in Yang Tianquan's hair is asking for a death wish. Isn't that senior brother Lan Binhui who placed 6th in the outer sect? They're done for. Senior brother Lan Binhui's a Tier 9 peak warrior, and he has cultivated an amber tier superior golden palm ablaze. There are less than 5 people among warriors who could triumph over him. I'll be happy if I have his cultivation level. The many disciples who had recognized Lan Binhui were discussing in great lengths over the man. Lan Binhui was a known figure in the outer sect, and as a Tier 9 peak warrior, such that even an ordinary warrior spirit may not be able to beat him. Upon hearing that so many were envious of him, Lan Binhui was walking on air. Placing sixth in the outer sect had basically guaranteed him a spot in the inner section. What a pity. All that cultivation fed to a dog. Shooting a cold stare at Lan Hai and Yang Tianchen, Li Lingtian paraded towards them as if he was taking a stroll in a park, unaware of the danger that was lurking. Huh? He has guts? A Tier 5 warrior blatantly challenging senior brother Lan Binhui's authority? Let's see him get it. Excitement bubbled over countless warriors as they watched Li Lingtian walk towards Lan Binhui and humiliating him without fear. To them, Li Lingtian was a dead man. Just know one thing, I'll torture you to death. Lan Binhui paused before his face stiffened. As one who had always been on high ground, he had never thought he would be insulted by a low-tiered warrior in front of many disciples. So you're trying to make your presence known by blabbing on. Are you going to die if you don't toot your horn? Calmly and with a faint smile, Li Lingtian made his way forward until he was only 5 yards away from Lan Binhui. Then, his sharp eyes swept past Lan Hai and 3 warriors. Ha ha ha. Li Lingtian's words had caused the disciples around to roar in laughter. A Tier 5 warrior was giving the 6th-ranked genius disciple a slap in the face. However, at the look of Lan Binhui who was about to lose his mind, they immediately stopped. It would be the end of them if they were caught by Lan Binhui. During that time, Shweta and Chen Yun approached Li Lingtian from behind while they glared straight at Yang Tianchen. Fine, let her go and we'll settle this later. Lan Binhui's feathers were ruffled to see Li Lingtian remain level-headed. Sullen, he was itching to break Li Lingtian into pieces, but he did not want to lose face in front of many warriors. Hence, he pretended to wave his hand in a poised manner. The 2 Tier 6 warriors put their arms out and pushed Shang Guanlinger towards Li Lingtian. Before she hit the ground, Li Lingtian scooped his arm out to catch Shang Guanlinger. Swoosh, swoosh. 2 gentle forces were then pressed onto Shang Guanlinger's body as Li Lingtian stirred his divine mindfulness into Shang Guanlinger's knowledge sea. With that, the spell was broken. Huh? Senior brother Li, senior brother Shui, senior brother Chen, where are we? Shang Guanlinger asked in puzzlement when she had regained consciousness to see Li Lingtian and the rest. She had no idea what had happened. You two, look after her. I'll deal with these bunch of pestering flies. Li Lingtian smiled after he had confirmed Shang Guanlinger's well-being. He had Shweta and Chen Yun take care of her before he coldly turned his attention to Lan Binhui. A Tier 9 peak warrior should not be underestimated. How arrogant! What a pompous! It'll be a waste not to act conceited before death. Haha. Many disciples watched Li Lingtian with their jaws dropped. How could this warrior disciple display such arrogance? Die! Golden palm ablaze, die! Unable to hold back any further, Lan Binhui circulated true qi throughout his body before suddenly, a violent aura was spread within a 55-yard radius. The disciples who were within a close range could sense a suppressing pressure from the tormenting gust. Thump thump. Shweta, Chen Yun, Shang Guanlinger, including Lan Hai's team had to retreat before this force. Their pale faces said it all. A Tier 9 peak warrior indeed. Senior brother Lan Binhui lives up to his title as the 6th genius. Yes, the vigor alone cannot be handled by any warrior. Astonished and envious at Lan Binhui's display of vigor, the disciples afar paid no notice to Lan Binhui's opponent, Li Lingtian, who maintained at his calmness with a smile on his face. I see you have a memory of a goldfish, will you die if you don't speak? Li Lingtian had long been on his guard. This Tier 9 warrior did present great vigor, such that even Tier 9 peak warrior, let alone a Tier 5 or any other warriors, would not be able to withstand this vigor. However, Li Lingtian was not any other warrior. With the fire dragon's heart in him, the might of a fire dragon had spread out from within his flaming true qi as protection over him. Suddenly, a ghastly flaming aura burst open and rolled towards Lan Binhui like a fire dragon. PFTTCH. Kaboom! The destructive vigor crumbled over Lan Binhui. No one could defeat Li Lingtian in terms of vigor with heaven and earth reincarnation, fire dragon's heart, and immemorial ice crystal in possession. Faced with Li Lingtian's vigor, Lan Binhui was trembling as if he was about to die. In his eyes, Lan Binhui could see an ancient fire dragon devouring him. Moreover, the blow to the heart and mind had caused his vigor to break down. As he spat out a mouthful of blood, the golden palm ablaze and flaming divine came into contact. The impact then threw Lan Binhui's body back like a line-broken kite. At this moment, it was pin-drop silent in the life or death canyon. Gobsmacked, the disciples could not believe their eyes. The powerful Lan Binhui was defeated by a Tier 5 warrior. Only those warriors with solid foundation could sense the fierce vigor that came from Li Lingtian. It was terrifying. Die, die, die. Without a moment's pause, Li Lingtian circulated his breeze technique to swerve his way around like the wind while he pulled his flaming divine fist around. Grunt after grunt following screams were heard. The 4 warriors by Lan Binhui were immediately taken out and burned to crisp by the flaming divine fist. They were far beyond dead. Rank 6th in the outer sect? What trash! As Li Lingtian stared at Lan Binhui on the ground with disdain, he slammed another fist on him with the force of flaming divine fist. Before Lan Binhui could let out a cry, he was long gone. Yang Tianchen, get your *SS over here. After killing Lan Binhui and his lackeys, the smile on Li Lingtian's face became deeper. His cold eyes then turned towards the trembling Yan Tianchen who had tested his limit and crossed the line. Since coming to this world, he finally had a few friends, yet Yan Tianchen dared to threaten him with his friends. Naturally, he was knocking on death's door. The fact that they were still Skycloud sect was at the back of his mind, but it did not matter anyway as, after all, life or death was not accounted for in life or death canyon. Senior brotherly, it's a misunderstanding. Frightened out his wits, Yang Tianchen quivered at the shock that was brought about by Li Lingtian. Sensing the befalling of death, Yang Tianchen fell onto his knees without an ounce of self-respect. Shock, stunned, and fear were written all over the disciples' faces. Who would have thought that a Tier 5 warrior could defeat Lan Binhui in an instant, eliminate a handful of Tier 6 warriors, and force Yan Tianchen to his knees? Misunderstanding, my *SS. You're dead meat. Li Lingtian thrust a fist of flames towards Yan Tianchen. The air was set ablaze following his swift motion that appeared before Yan Tianchen in no time. At this moment, a powerful energy warded off in front of Yang Tianchen. It was a violent metal path energy. Chapter 13. Kaboom! The loud blow exploded as pressure released, ripping the air apart. Startled, Li Lingtian withdrew 5 yards backward before he stopped. However, the person in front of Yang Tianchen swiftly moved back too and forcefully stopped at a similar distance to Li Lingtian. The scene left everyone dumbstruck. The disciples who were stunned by Li Lingtian's flaming divine fist finally returned to their senses and were excited to see the duo in the life or death canyon. This was going to be a never-before-seen epic battle. The fights between warriors that they had witnessed before were just a play of fools. This time, not only did a Tier 5 warrior defeat a Tier 9 warrior genius, but now, a powerful warrior had made an appearance. Great, great. A young man in his 20s appeared alongside Yang Tianchen. Dressed in blue, he had a relaxed demeanor as he gazed at Li Lingtian with a surprised look on his face. He was the same person who had helped Yang Tianchen overcome the fist. Yang Xiaotian, it's you. Li Lingtian was shocked to see this young man. It was no wonder his fist could be fended off without a hitch. It was Yang Xiaotian. Of course, he recognized Yang Xiaotian. He was a genius disciple in the inner sect and ranked 8th there. The inner sect's 8th place outranked to the outer sect's top 10. Any disciple in the inner sect could easily defeat the top 10 disciples in the outer sect, and this was the difference between these two sections. A Tier 3 warrior spirit was omnipotent. Coming to blows with such a person, he had no guarantee that he could win even if he had mastered the fire dragon's hearts. He had personally witnessed the strength of a warrior spirit just a few days ago. Li Lingtian, you sure put up a front. Who would have thought that you'll make it up to Tier 5 warrior? Still, you're nothing before me. Yang Xiaotian kicked Yang Tianchen away from the life or death canyon's boundary line before he stared at Li Lingtian with a straight face. For Li Lingtian to achieve Tier 5 at the age of 14. Even Yang Xiaotian did not have such accomplishment at that age. Moreover, this Li Lingtian seemed to have acquired quite an ability. Yang Xiaoshan's earlier strike, although pressed for time, had used up only a third of his energy. Yet a third of his energy was more than enough to take out a Tier 5 warrior. Not only did Li Lingtian resist it, but they both came to a draw. Regardless, the force of a warrior spirit was a force to be reckoned with. Of course, he did not know that Li Lingtian was holding his strength back. Li Lingtian merely wanted to cripple Yang Tianchen with that earlier strike. After all, Yang Tianchen may not be the legal firstborn son, but he still held high standing in the family. It's senior brother Yang Xiaotian. It's the inner sect's 8th place genius. I heard that he obtained an Onyx tier skill after reaching Tier 3 warrior spirit. Even a 5th placed master may not be his match. Li Lingtian's done for. What a pity. If he did not get on senior brother Yang's nerves, Li Lingtian's bound to be a rare talent. The disciples were bustling with excitement over Yang Xiaoshan's presence, it was as if they had seen their idol. Besides, many young women were gushing over him. The Yang family's all the same as if you'll die if you don't toot your horn. Li Lingtian kept a smile on his face while he went through multiple scenarios in his mind. This Yang Xiaotian had a high cultivation level that even Yang Chongxiao from a few days ago could not be held in the same regard. No one would be bothered if he was killed in the life or death canyon. However, he would drag this Yang Xiaotian down with him if he had to. Take one hit from me and I'll spare your life if you survive. I don't want to be called a bully. Yang Xiaotian glanced at Li Lingtian with disdain. He did not want to ruin his reputation in front of all these disciples. Since his single move was enough to cripple Li Lingtian, no one would say he bullied the weak then. His haughty head lifted to take a glance around and within his sight was faces of adoration and envy. He was on cloud 9 to meet this situation. Meanwhile, in a cave that was a distance from the life or death canyon, a pair of sharp eyes were fixated in the canyon. There was a hint of surprise and curiosity buried in these eyes. Old Zhong, is that the disciple you're happy with? An elder with a beard and head full of red mane teased Zhong Tian upon noticing his gaze. Xiao Feng, you're the one interested in that disciple. Everyone knows that you cultivate the sky-smothering technique. That disciple may not have a high cultivation level but he has the ability to control flaming divine fist to summit, Zhong Tian coldly blurted. Outsiders may not know but these two elders were warrior kings with incredible cultivation levels. Hee, there aren't many disciples in Skycloud sect that amount to anything but these 2 years have brought about plenty of genius disciples. The heavens must be taking pity on Skycloud sect. The two elders conversed indifferently while they fixed their gazes in the life or death canyon, taking in the view below. The disciples who gathered on the canyon were impressed by Yang Xiaoshan's words. After all, Yang Xiaotian was the embodiment of ability and great breadth of mind. Is everyone in the Yang family shameless like you? A Tier 3 warrior spirit against a Tier 5 warrior like me? I admire your shamelessness. You take one hit of mine and if you're not dead, I'll kill you in the grand tournament. Though Li Lingtian looked calm, he felt embarrassed for Yang Xiaotian. How could a person be so brazen to act magnanimously in front of disciples? Whoa! The audience burst into an uproar at Li Lingtian's words that snapped back at Yang Xiaotian. It may be a little far-fetched for a Tier 5 warrior to go against a Tier 3 warrior spirit. The disciples were dumbstruck. Was today the end of the world, or did it just turn mad? Fine, fine, great. Yang Xiaotian flew off the handle. Who gave Li Lingtian the right to challenge and provoke him in front of everyone? As the vigor in his body surged quickly, the might of a warrior spirit suddenly clouded over 200 yards, even disciples afar were overwhelmed with suppression. With that, they immediately retreated further away. Li Lingtian, who bore the brunt, took the same course of action, but instead, his whole body felt as if he was swept into a furious storm and in danger of drowning within himself. Humph! The repression of a warrior spirit was indeed strong. He coldly snorted before he circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation. At the stomp of his foot, the vigor around Li Lingtian rose steeply. The emergence of vigor swiftly kept the repression in check. It was a temporary relief from the crushing repression. The strong had the upper hand over the weak by crushing them with repression. As both repression and cultivation level went hand in hand, it could not be faked. Swoosh swoosh. The repression and vigor tore the air apart. As Yang Xiaoshan's powerful repression crumbled over Li Lingtian, he gave an unbridled smile as though he could already see Li Lingtian begging before him. However, Li Lingtian's vigor withstood against his repression. Although it was not completely blocked, a vacuum was formed within 4 yards of the repression, disallowing any energy from moving forth. Astounding sword technique, bright moon in soft breeze, break it? Li Lingtian may be smiling, but he bit his tongue on the hardships he was suffering within. The repression of a warrior spirit could not be easily fended off by a warrior, and this was the competitive edge of the strong over the weak. With the true qi in his body quickly exhausting, if Li Lingtian did not make a move soon, he would be crushed to death by the repression the moment his true qi ran out. Pushing his true qi to the limit, he waved his arm to draw his long sword. Ka-cha! At the flicker of a silvery moon glow, a crackle echoed in the air. The powerful repression split the strange blade glare in half, and like the melting of snow under the spring's sun, it soon dissipated. Li Lingtian no longer had a sword in his hand because the long sword had been retrieved back into the scabbard in his left hand. The speed was so horrifyingly quick. Tzh. Meanwhile, with a grimacing look on his face, Yang Xiaotian looked down at his chest. A tiny cut was presented upon his chest with a tear on his apparel. He was an inch away from death. Golden palm ablaze, go to hell. Yang Xiaotian was both alarmed and outraged to find his repression destroyed by a warrior, and it had almost cost him his life. Unable to tolerate it further, he circulated his true qi to the fullest and swung his arms repeatedly. As fierce forces were fired in all directions, Yang Xiaoshan's palms formed a faint golden glow that was immediately smashed onto Li Lingtian. D***mn. Li Lingtian was appalled by the incoming golden palms. The earlier bright moon in soft breeze had exhausted his true qi completely, which consequently disabled him from pulling a flaming divine fist unless he forcefully chanced an ice vitality divine fist. Chapter 14. In the blink of an eye, a huge golden palm smashed down on Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian took a stand that since Yang Xiaotian was out to kill him, he had to pay the price with his life. Just as he was about to launch the ice vitality divine fist, a wave of destructive repression descended upon the atmosphere. This repression was a lot more robust than Yang Xiaoshan's, and the difference was definitely worlds apart. The descent of the repression imprisoned every disciple in the life or death canyon, disabling them from any motion. Meanwhile, the golden palm was stuck in the air, unable to move an inch, as if time had frozen. Everyone held their breath in. Are you trying to revolt? A deafening sonorous voice rang in everyone's eardrums, and it was extremely painful. Suspended in the air, an elder coldly stared into the canyon. His red mane reminded Li Lingtian of a golden-maned lion king in his past life. Pstttzh. Both Li Lingtian and Yang Xiaotian spat blood at the same time. With pale faces, Yang Xiaotian collapsed on the ground while Li Lingtian stumbled backward by a couple of yards before falling on his bottom. Shweta and the rest were pressed onto the ground and their movements were restricted. Do you have that much time on your hands? All of you, face the wall and reflect for a month. The red-haired elder shouted before he dispersed his repression. Immediately, the onlooking disciples outside the life or death canyon scattered as fast as their legs could carry them. Any slower and they would be made to face the wall in reflection for a month. It would be more suffering than death itself. You're still here. The red-haired elder raised his voice at Yang Xiaotian, Li Lingtian, and the lot. His thundering voice shook the earth. Don't ever let me see you or it'll be doomsday. As Yang Xiaotian stared coldly at Li Lingtian, he wiped the blood trail on the corner of his mouth. He was frustrated. If it were not for the elder above who caught them at the most crucial moment, Li Lingtian would have been crippled. I'll say the same to you. Don't ever let me see you and stay away from me in the grand tournament. Li Lingtian coldly snorted before he looked at the red-haired elder in the sky with gratitude. Had it not for the arrival of this red-haired elder, he would have unleashed Ice Vitality Divine Fist. The Ice Vitality Divine Fist might be powerful, but he would end up wounded in pain by hurting his meridians. Casting a scornful side glance to Yang Xiaotian and Yang Tianchen, Li Lingtian then led Shweta, Chen Yun, and Shang Guanlinger out the life or death canyon. Soon, Li Lingtian's group left the life or death canyon. Although Shweta and the other two had suffered the crushing repression, the red-haired elder acted with a sense of propriety and did not cause them any harm. Shang Guanlinger had long recovered. She did not expect that Li Lingtian would kill Lan Binhui and the rest for her sake, even offending Yang Xiaotian in the process. Senior brother Li, thank you, Shang Guanlinger bashfully said with a blushing face as she trod towards Li Lingtian for a salute. It's best to stay indoors to avoid Yang Tianchen and the rest. I'll be leaving now. It's only a month of reflection. Li Lingtian smiled. Shang Guanlinger would not be picked by Lan Hai if it were not for him. Through this event, he had come to an understanding that he needed to be more powerful. Since a warrior spirit was enough to put him in a difficult position, it would be the end of him if he encountered an even stronger opponent. With this, his desire for strength grew stronger. An ice vitality warrior soul and flaming sacred body alone were not enough, he had to raise his cultivation level. Wall facing cliff. This was the punishment of Skycloud sect disciples who had committed faults that were not a cause for banishment or crippling of cultivation level. It was a place where disciples with potential came to reflect by facing the wall. In other words, it provided a chance to disciples with potential. Although the place was rich with spiritual chi, it was a solitary one. Every disciple who was in reflection was on their own. Arriving at the wall-facing cliff, Li Lingtian entered a room. With his legs crossed, he sat facing a stone wall and closed his eyes in cultivation. However, this was only for a month. As time went on day by day, the excitement was written all over Li Lingtian's face. During this period, he focused on cultivation. The frequent use of vitality pills throughout his cultivation had brought him to tier 6. However, the usual vitality pill would not have such an effect. Putting aside his advancement in cultivation level, the leading cause of his excitement was the apprehension of the mysterious jade slip. Pill art. Ancient pill art, it's the ancient pill art. I can't believe my luck. Li Lingtian gazed at the jade slip in his hands. This jade slip was obtained from killing Zhou Yun, a windpath warrior soul when he was hunted in the woods. For a long period of time, he did not recognize that this jade slip was, in fact, a pill art. It had never crossed his mind that, with the support of a powerful soul over his divine mindfulness, having a calm mind would turn on this jade slip. It was a joke because, unlike him, Zhou Yun did not realize this ancient pill art and thought that it was trash instead. Was it a joke? It's no wonder. This jade slip can't be opened by a tier 6 or 7 disciple. If it weren't for my powerful soul and divine mindfulness, this jade slip would not have been activated. On second thought, he came to the conclusion that Zhou Yun, who was killed in a single move, was only a tier 7 warrior, and that was why he could not activate the Jade Slip. Pill art was an apothecary's bible of various pill refining techniques and miraculous refinery methods. Divine Martial Continent was rich with resources, yet it was short in pill refining skills. A great genius would never part from pills. No matter how skillful a genius was, there was a need for pill supplements. Pills were required in breaking through a bottleneck, treatment of wounds, as well as the growth of cultivation level. An apothecary ranked high in this world. It was also the most magical profession in the Divine Martial Continent, surpassing even a blacksmith. Warriors could only look up to them, and unless necessary, a warrior would not offend an apothecary. A warrior spirit and warrior king would not stir trouble with a regular apothecary, let alone a powerful one. However, there were only a handful of superior apothecaries in this world, as a slight advancement was easier said than done. Apothecaries were divided into 9 tiers. Tier 1 to 2 apothecaries refined grade 1 to 2 pills, while tier 3 to 4 apothecaries were called great apothecaries, and they refined grade 3 to 4 pills. Tier 5 to 6 spiritual apothecaries refined grade 5 to 6 pills, whereas tier 7 and 8 apothecaries are called sacred apothecaries. A sacred apothecary was capable of refining grade 7 and 8 pills. A tier 9 divine apothecary could refine pills that were miracle cures. There was an even stronger existence called apothecary master, but this was only in the legends. The strongest in Sky Dragon Empire was a tier 5 spiritual apothecary, while the rest were merely apothecaries of the 2 primary tiers, making the majority great apothecaries. Even a warrior king and ascendant dared not step on a great apothecary's toes. This was the standing of an apothecary, a supreme standing. I was concerned that I didn't have any pills, but with this pill art, I don't have to worry about having no pills. Other apothecary warriors may be concerned about grasping the techniques, but this was not a problem for Li Lingtian. After all, he was a man of wisdom from the 21st century. Although I don't know how powerful this pill art is, the technique in it doesn't seem to be of this world. I should take my time to grasp it in the next 5 days. Li Lingtian instilled his divine mindfulness into the Jade Slip to receive the information. The information entered his mind, and after the message sending was complete, the Jade Slip turned into ashes. OB*getter, the lowest is a grade 3 pill. Just my luck, I suppose. Li Lingtian cursed after he had gone through the information in the pill art for a while. Profound with techniques ranging in thousands, the varying magical techniques were harder to fathom than sword techniques. His omnipotent divine mindfulness and wisdom got him through the first half of the information. The first pill was a grade 3, and it was also the lousiest pill in pill art. He would be digging a hole for himself if he refined a grade 3 pill without any foundation in pill refinery. How silly am I? I can first refine low-graded, grade 1 and 2 pills with the techniques and knowledge in this before slowly making my way to refining higher-graded pills. He smacked a palm to his face. He had a blonde moment and forgot the simple solution to it. A month later, Li Lingtian left the wall-facing cliff with a sense of thrill in his eyes. A month of wall-facing had not only boosted his cultivation level by leaps and bounds, but he had racked up a pill art as well. It was indeed a huge gain. Humming a tune along the way, he walked towards the sex welfare chamber. He had familiarized himself with a few of the techniques in the past few days, but he still had to get a few things before he began to refine pills. To dig a hole in the ground, a hoe would be needed, and likewise, pill refinery too could not be accomplished with bare hands. Instead, a pill tripod and formula were required, as well as various ingredients. There were many disciples who did business alongside SkyCloud sect. These disciples specifically operated restaurants, pill shops, and supply shops inside the sect. Anything other cities in Sky Dragon Empire had, SkyCloud sect had it too. The welfare chamber may be a place where the sect worked for the well-being of disciples, but there were some private businesses. However, it was still fairer than in other places. If it isn't senior brother Li Lingtian. He came to the welfare chamber and greeted that same warrior he had met before with a smile. Throughout this period, word had spread on Li Lingtian's deeds. A peripheral disciple, a former good-for-nothing, had turned the tables in a month and defeated Yang Tianfeng, a Tier 4 warrior. He then crippled Lan Hai, an outer sect genius, before killing the outer sect's 6th place, Lan Binhui, in the Life or Death Canyon. He had also engaged in battle with Yang Xiaotian, who was an inner sect Tier 3 warrior spirit. He penetrated the warrior spirit's repression in a single move, and although he sustained injuries, it was a slap in the face on Yang Xiaoshan's part. In the end, a sect elder was involved. The two were told to reflect as the supposed punishment. All the disciples were clear that it was the sect's way of protecting these two genius disciples. With that being said, Li Lingtian's cultivation level and strength shocked many disciples. Now, no one dared to mess with these low-tiered disciples, as they would not know what would hit them. "Oh, you remember me? Give me a good pill tripod, a grade 1 vitality pill formula, and a grade 2 spirit binding formula." Flashing a carefree smile, Li Lingtian paced towards the counter with an innocent-looking face. With this face, no one would be able to associate him with the weirdo that defeated a Tier 9 genius. "Please wait for a moment, Senior Brotherly. I might not have some items, but I do have a few grade 1 and 2 formulas." Zuzikin chuckled before he headed in to rummage for the items. These items were not considered a treasure in Skycloud sect, and with barely any apothecaries in the sect, there would naturally be no lack of supplies. Chapter 15. Soon, Zuzikin brought out a bronze pill tripod. It seemed like it was a foot-long pill tripod. "Senior Brotherly, this is the best pill tripod around here. It's a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it's not cheap." Chuckling, Zuzikin passed the pill tripod over to Li Lingtian. A regular pill tripod would only cost a few dozen spiritual stones, but this pill tripod was a mediocre spiritual equipment. A spiritual equipment ranked tripod. Taken aback, Li Lingtian took the pill tripod for a closer inspection, and it was indeed a piece of spiritual equipment. Although it was mediocre, the tripod emitted a faint spiritual sense. It was a spiritual equipment in the flesh. This was also his first encounter with a spiritual equipment, as even his blade was a common weapon. Spiritual equipment was not something a peripheral disciple like him could chance upon. Warriors in the divine martial continent not only equipped themselves with skills and pill refinery, they too sought after weapons. After all, a good weapon could increase a warrior's overall combat effectiveness. The help a weapon could do for a warrior was more important than skills. Many skills depended upon powerful weapons to be brought to full play. A warrior without an adequate weapon was technically a warrior without limbs. Even though Li Lingtian's longsword was a common weapon, unleashing Bright Moon in Soft Breeze could penetrate a warrior spirit's repression. If he wielded a longsword that was a piece of spiritual equipment, the Bright Moon in Soft Breeze would not only penetrate the repression, but Yang Xiaotian would be killed too. Weapons in Divine Martial Continent were also classified by rank and quality. It ranked from spiritual equipment, onyx equipment, imperial equipment, heavenly equipment, sacred equipment, to divine equipment. Each classification was also determined by the degree of quality, which was mediocre, ordinary, premium, and peerless. Aside from divine and sacred equipment, heavenly and imperial equipment were a rare find in Divine Martial Continent, while onyx equipment was only owned by the highly skilled masters. Yes, this pill tripod is a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it does nothing for offense and defense. It can only be used to refine pills. Zuzikin stared at Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian had made quite a name for himself in the past month. If Li Lingtian dared to offend even the inner sex Yang Xiaotian, Zuzikin was sure that Li Lingtian would not hold back if he were to step on his toes. How much for these three altogether? Li Lingtian fell deep into thought. Spiritual stones were important for cultivation, but pill refinery was more important and the priority in boosting his cultivation level. "Senior Brotherly, This pill tripod is 500 spiritual stones while these two pill formulas are 300 spiritual stones, making it a total of 800 spiritual stones. Zuzikin gave it a thought. He dared not raise the price too high or keep the price too low. If not, he would have to bear the consequences when the higher UPS looked into it. 800 spiritual stones. Li Lingtian's heart thumped. He had used up some of the spiritual stones he had previously exchanged in the library chamber. On top of that, there were 600 spiritual stones left in Lan Binhui's storage sack. He currently only had 600 spiritual stones in his entire residence. He mumbled in his heart, I can't give up the pill tripod, nor can I give up the formulas. I'll be taking these 3 items. I'll pay the remaining 200 spiritual stones a while later. As Eus were a norm in his past life, he should try his luck here. This, Zuzikin's mind went blank. He had never come across such a thing. He had profited over the expense of countless Skycloud sect disciples who traded here, but it was never the other way around. What are you trying to say? That I can't do that? Li Lingtian fixed his eyes on Zuzikin as though he was questioning the yammering after having forked out 600 spiritual stones. Of course, it can't be done if it's anything one else, but it's no problem if it's senior brotherly. Zuzikin was on tenterhooks. As he did not want to get on Li Lingtian's bad side, he had to give in even if he was taken advantage of. Hence, he agreed to the terms. Li Lingtian stored the pill tripod and formulas in the storage sack before he made his way towards his residence, leaving behind welfare chambers Zuzikin with a helpless look on his face. Although Zuzikin was shortchanged by 200 spiritual stones, he had to remain soft-spoken. A grade 1 vitality pill increases warrior's true chi, cutting down and minimizing the cultivation period. It is the lowest grade pill. Vitality pill requires vitality control grass, white jade flower, purple string fruit, aerial wind grass, narcissus needle, a first tier level 9 inner vital, and 3 drops of level 9 blood essence. Li Lingtian murmured under his breath as he read the jade slip in his hand. Vitality pill was a grade 1 pill formula that required the most common ingredients, but it was not an easy feat to refine this pill. I'll have to take a trip to the Sky Mountains. After he had grasped the formula and tempered with the pill tripod, all that was left were ingredients and inner vital. These items required spiritual stones, and for spiritual stones, he had to head into Sky Mountains to slaughter demonic beasts. 10,000 Demons Valley. This was Skycloud sect's practice field, but it was where inner sect and out sect disciples both tempered themselves. This was because the place was swamped with first tier level 8 and 9 demonic beasts. Besides, it also included the existence of second-tier demonic beasts that were comparable to the strength of a warrior spirit. Hence, most outer sect disciples stayed away from here. After a few days of cultivation in his room, Li Lingtian left and went straight to 10,000 Demons Valley. These past few days in cultivation had also made him feel like time had flown past. During the time he was in wall-facing cliff, he was constantly in cultivation and grasping pill art that he did not have the time to look into the ice and fire ring. So back in his room, he tempered with the ice and fire ring after apprehending the grade 1 vitality pill. However, he did not know what treasure the ice and fire ring would be classified as after he had tempered with it, because this was his first time coming into contact with a treasure. After all, his pill tripod was only the lowest level of spiritual equipment. Nevertheless, this ice and fire ring was more powerful than the pill tripod. Just by intuition alone, this ring should be at least a peerless spiritual equipment. However, it was indeed a defense-type treasure that could not be used for attacks, as inside resided the mystical defenses of 2 elements, ice and fire paths. The ice and fire element repelled against one another yet were placed together. This was the interesting bit. Li Lingtian had a fire dragon's heart and an immemorial ice crystal. Similarly, he also had an ice vitality and flaming warrior soul, and it depended on the heaven and earth reincarnation to balance the energies. The ice and fire ring, on the other hand, was not restrained by anything, yet fire and ice were able to coexist and display a powerful drive. The defense alone could resist against a warrior spirit's single attack in full force. As his cultivation level was still on the low, it was unbelievable for a tier 6 warrior like him to ward off a warrior spirit's full-fledged attack. Li Lingtian's confidence grew with this defense-type treasure in possession. As long as his path remained uncrossed with supreme warriors or demonic beasts, he would not be in any danger. Hold it right there, you piece of trash. Shortly after venturing into 10,000 Demons Valley, Li Lingtian heard an arrogant voice calling out to him. Helplessly shaking his head, Li Lingtian walked along without stopping. Even though he did not turn back, his divine mindfulness took in the sight behind. A youth in black who was around his 20s stood erected on a treetop, peering at him with cold eyes. Although this youth carried himself in a carefree manner, Li Lingtian had nothing but disdain for him. From where this warrior stood, he was looking at death as the higher he stood, the bigger the fall. I told you to hold it right there. Are you deaf? Zhou Yongxiao blew a fuse at Li Lingtian's refusal to stop. How dare a good-for-nothing act this way towards him? As a great genius, he had never received the cold shoulder. In a flash, Zhou Yongxiao appeared before Li Lingtian. Didn't I told you to stop? Are you stupid? Li Lingtian responded by sneering at Zhou Yongxiao. A measly tier 8 warrior was not worth Li Lingtian's time. He may only be a tier 6 warrior, but he had far greater disposition and goals than the average man. He knew who this man was. Zhou Yongxiao was the guy who had chased after Tang Ximen, but the latter rejected his advances. However, Tang Ximen was Li Lingtian's fiancé. Are you looking to die? Zhou Yongxiao was dumbfounded. This piece of trash may be an eyesore, but he had never once snapped back at him, so Li Lingtian's earlier reaction caught him by surprise. However, that surprise soon turned into rage. Surging a body of vigor, Zhou Yongxiao sliced Li Lingtian with the long sword in his hand, slashing a mighty blade glare. If it was a real cut, Li Lingtian would have lost his life. It's not as impressive as it looks. Cling. With a calm look on his face and a smile, Li Lingtian extended his arm and curled his finger into a flick. At a crisp sound, the long sword slid to the side and fell right by Li Lingtian. Come out, haven't you seen enough? After forcing away Zhou Yongxiao's long sword with a finger, Li Lingtian dully said without turning back. Chapter 16. Brother Lingtian, why are you here? Are you here for me? A young lady in purple appeared before Li Lingtian the moment he said his piece. The young girl, who was about 14 or 15 years old, looked about Li Lingtian's age. The two little dimples on that exquisitely flawless face enhanced her overall ability. Her witty eyes fixated on Li Lingtian as she spoke. She was Tang Ximen, the granddaughter of the empire's King Kaoshan. Sharing the same birth date, she was the same age as Li Lingtian. The difference between their birth was only by an hour. For this reason, Great General Tang Filong and Li Zhonyang arranged a betrothal between them. Tang Ximen and Li Lingtian grew up together, but the duo gradually drifted apart after they began their cultivation journey in Skycloud sect. D***MN, you must be blind to go after Nangong Minjia when your fiancé's no less than her. In fact, there's an air of cuteness and elegance to her. After feasting his eyes on Tang Ximen, Li Lingtian cursed at his former self. I'm thinking of making a trip to the 10,000 Demons Valley. Li Lingtian answered Tang Ximen while he cursed in his heart. This gorgeous girl was a rare sight to behold, as he was captivated by those dimples in particular. In the beginning, Li Lingtian often came here to look for Tang Ximen, but the former had become occupied with cultivation in the last 1 to 2 years. As Li Lingtian's cultivation level pulled away from Tang Ximen's, they both grew distant. Oh. What? You're going to 10,000 Demons Valley? Tang Ximen expressed acknowledgement but quickly caught on. Surely Li Lingtian was joking when he said he was going to 10,000 Demons Valley. Although she was a Tier 7 warrior, she dared not simply venture into 10,000 Demons Valley by herself. Li Lingtian might be a genius disciple, but he had a late start and was only a peripheral disciple. Without pills and great skills, the cultivation level between them was worlds apart. Moreover, Tang Ximen had a Tier 9 warrior spirit sister in Sky Cloud sect, which put her on a great advantage and at a different level from Li Lingtian. Humph, you piece of trash, stay away from Ximen. Why don't you take a look in the mirror? Zhou Yongxiao was displeased to see Tang Ximen and Li Lingtian engaged in a conversation. He had pursued Tang Ximen for over a year, yet she had not spoken a word to him. There was no way he could tolerate Tang Ximen acting close to a good-for-nothing. Haha, Zhou Yongxiao, just let it be. Don't tell me that you wouldn't dare lay hands on a good-for-nothing. All that cultivation fed to a dog. Junior sister Tang Ximen isn't someone you can bang. Of course, that piece of trash doesn't have the right either. At this time, many disciples who were entering 10,000 Demons Valley burst into laughter after they caught a glimpse of Li Lingtian and the other two. These disciples disapproved of Zhou Yongxiao, but they too thought nothing less of a good-for-nothing like Li Lingtian. Shut up. As fellow disciples insulted Li Lingtian, the sweet smile on Tang Ximen's face disappeared into a cold, stiffened face. A long sword appeared in her hand. Tang Ximen was anxious about Li Lingtian's lack in cultivation level. Since this was a world where the fittest survives, so, of course, she hoped for a dauntless powerhouse as her future husband. Nevertheless, she grew up together with brother Lingtian and could not tolerate anyone mocking him. She would rather live an uneventful life than have anyone insulting brother Lingtian. At the thought that she had barely spent time with brother Lingtian in the recent 1 to 2 years due to cultivation, Tang Ximen felt guilty. Junior sister Ximen, don't be angry. Why be angry over him? This is a world where only the fittest will survive. Why would you stand for a good-for-nothing? You're definitely a piece of trash, hiding behind a woman. Zhou Yongxiao and the other warriors were stunned. Tang Ximen may not have a high cultivation level, but she had a Tier 9 warrior spirit sister that they dared not mess with. Moreover, Tang Ximen was a rare beauty. Coming back to his senses, Zhou Yongxiao immediately explained to Tang Ximen in a soft tone before he darted a cold look at Li Lingtian. The more Tang Ximen defended Li Lingtian, the more he was infuriated. Will you catch a shriveling disease if you don't speak? Li Lingtian was taken aback by Tang Ximen's reaction. Based on his understanding of this world, this was where the law of the jungle applied and relationships meant nothing. However, he was surprised by Tang Ximen's actions of setting herself against others in order to defend him. After all, relationships took a backseat in the name of money and power in his past life, and this world was no different. Li Lingtian's heart was filled with warmth by Tang Ximen's behavior. There was no reason for him to turn his back on her as she had his back. As a smile deepened on his face, Li Lingtian gently took a step out and stood before Zhou Yongxiao. His cold eyes looked at Zhou Yongxiao as though he was an idiot. You're looking for death. It did not occur to Zhou Yongxiao that Li Lingtian would challenge him in front of a gorgeous girl. He was enraged to be humiliated and disrespected in front of Tang Ximen. Swinging his long sword, Zhou Yongxiao launched a fierce blade glare towards Li Lingtian. With only a 5 yards distance between them, the blade was swung in the blink of an eye. Brother Lingtian, be careful. Although Tang Ximen was surprised, she could not stop him in time. Moreover, her Tier 6 abilities would not be able to save Li Lingtian against Zhou Yongxiao, who was at Tier 8. With a pale face, Tang Ximen's chest tightened. However, she soon found herself staring at Li Lingtian in shock, while the other disciples who remained stared at Li Lingtian in fear as though they had seen a ghost. Li Lingtian single-handedly swung his sword to slice a flickering silver blade glow before he retrieved his right hand. Li Lingtian stood still as though he never moved an inch, but a dull clash was soon heard. Pftschh. Time froze on a despaired Zhou Yongxiao, whose long sword was now split in half. Besides that, his cultivation of true chi was quickly leaking from a cut that could be seen through the tear in the abdomen area of his clothes. Ah, you crippled my cultivation level. Ah, my cultivation level. The releasing sensation of his cultivation was clear to Zhou Yongxiao that his dantian was crippled. Unable to bear the weight of it, Zhou Yongxiao let out a horrifying scream. What a terrifying swing! What speed! That was a vicious blade glare. Is he still the same piece of trash? The warriors who mocked both Li Lingtian and Zhou Yongxiao earlier were completely dumbstruck. With overwhelming fear, they hung their heads low, afraid to see eye to eye with Li Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, your cultivation level. In a state of shock, Tang Ximen's dainty mouth dropped wide open, but she cupped one hand over it. She was startled by Brother Lingtian's capabilities. It was long before she returned to her senses to probe into his abilities. Was this the same Brother Lingtian? The former Brother Lingtian may be good to her, but he was a little weak and never had such a smooth, clean approach. Moreover, Tang Ximen was amused at the thought of Li Lingtian's words before. She now saw Li Lingtian in a new light, as though she was seeing him for the first time. I just broke through Tier 6 warrior not long ago. Li Lingtian did not keep it a secret. There was no need to conceal the truth since he was only a Tier 6 warrior. His cultivation level would only improve from here anyway. Great, this is great. Sixth grandfather won't oppose to us anymore. Tang Ximen happily added. The blossoming smile on her face took Li Lingtian's breath away. Your sixth grandfather. Li Lingtian was confused and curious to learn that sixth grandfather had opposed their betrothal. Nothing, nothing. Tang Ximen's alarm bells rang at Li Lingtian's question. Brother Lingtian would definitely blow a fuse if he were to find out. So, she immediately shook her head. Girl, tell me, what is this about? Having lived 2 lifetimes, Li Lingtian knew there was more to this little girl's action. As such, with a serious face, he asked in a soft voice. Sixth grandfather wants to betroth me to Duan Mucheng. As there was no point in fooling him, Tang Ximen told the truth. There were a few outstanding characters in Skycloud sect, and some of them were warrior king powerhouses. Duan Mucheng was an inner sect disciple and a Tier 6 warrior spirit. As this was a dog-eat-dog world, Tang Ximen's sixth grandfather naturally wanted Tang Ximen to marry Duan Mucheng. He, I see, and what are your thoughts? After Li Lingtian had said that, he advanced forward without taking another look at Zhou Yongxiao. The law of the jungle principle ran deep within warriors, so he could only count on himself in gaining strength. Very quickly, Li Lingtian had entered 10,000 Demons Valley, disappearing from Tang Ximen's line of vision. By the time Tang Ximen returned to her senses, Li Lingtian was long gone. Brother Lingtian, you did that intentionally. Tang Ximen stomped her foot and pouted her luscious lips in an alluring manner at the disappearance of Li Lingtian. Then, she darted off in the opposite direction, leaving behind the crippled Zhou Yongxiao and a few terror-stricken warriors. They held their breath in until Li Lingtian and Tang Ximen had left the scene. What a terrifying cultivation level! Is he really a Tier 6 warrior? I'm a Tier 7 warrior, but I'm not certain if I can overcome that strike. Is he still the same good-for-nothing we know? It's best we distance ourselves from him before we get ourselves in trouble. It'll be fun to see how this plays out. Duan Mucheng isn't one to mess with. The warriors mumbled among themselves before they left 10,000 Demons Valley. It was only right to stay away since Li Lingtian had entered 10,000 Demons Valley. After all, they did not want to risk their lives fronting with Li Lingtian. Back inside 10,000 Demons Valley, Li Lingtian came across many Tier 6 and above outer sect as well as inner sect disciples who joined forces in eliminating demonic beasts while searching for medicinal supplies. Chapter 17. Bright Moon in Soft Breeze, Die. At the swing of a sword, a silvery blade glow flickered, and soon a level 6 armored beast was sliced in half. It was dead. Flaming Divine Fist, penetrate. A fist-bearing flame was thrown, burning through the air before it smashed onto a first-tier level 8 lightning leopard. The lightning leopard fell onto the ground as its body spread a fragrant aroma. Li Lingtian was a one-hit wonder throughout his journey, even with a level 8 demonic beast. Many tier 6 and 7 warriors were struck with fear at the sight of Li Lingtian's terror. This young man was a more revering existence to them than the demonic beasts. They had originally wanted to seize Li Lingtian's storage sack, but they scrambled far away after witnessing his skills. Instead, these warriors were afraid that they would be robbed by Li Lingtian. This is great. I have finally found a white jade flower, and it was of 20 years' value. He extended his arm to retrieve the white jade flower before he headed deeper in to kill more demonic beasts. He left out the materials and only grabbed the inner vitals because his storage sack had limited storage. Time went on day by day and there were now about 30 level 7 and above inner vitals in his storage sack. There were also some medicinal supplies, and although they were only 10 years of value, they were enough to refine grade 1 pills. This day, Li Lingtian entered the depths of the 10,000 Demons Valley. For the past 3 days, he had continuously come across only level 9 demonic beasts, of which their inner vitals were worth more than inner vitals of other levels. What a powerful demonic chi could this be? At that moment, an omnipotent demonic chi filled the air with the scent of aura that left people trembling. This was the repression of a superior demonic beast towards inferior demonic beasts. Getter, just my luck. Li Lingtian smiled bitterly before he hurried to a nearby stone wall. His swift body movements carried him to the top of an 11 yards tall stone wall in seconds. Then, he glanced at the gigantic demonic beast below. Earth Dragon, a second-tier level 4 demonic beast. The grey demonic beast, scaling a height of 5 yards, was an ugly sight to behold, but Li Lingtian had no thoughts on its appearance. Regardless of its looks, it was still a second-tier level 4 demonic beast. It had the strength comparable to a tier 4 warrior spirit. Demonic beasts naturally had great defense and were capable of vicious attacks. They were much stronger than human warriors, and it was more so for a second-tier earth dragon that was akin to the earth element, granting it amazing defense and powerful attacks. Phew. Spotting Li Lingtian, the earth dragon's bloodshot eyes, which was the size of a knuckle, beamed at its delicious meal. It swiftly pounced at Li Lingtian. Come bite me. It, how can this be? Li Lingtian let out a brash smile at the earth dragon that was jumping towards him. It was impossible for the earth dragon to leap over the 11 yards tall stone wall. However, his face turned grave soon after he made a come bite me gesture at the earth dragon. The earth dragon was clawing his way up the stone wall with its sharp nails, swooping towards Li Lingtian on the double. Li Lingtian's mind went blank. He had never believed the saying that pigs could fly, but neither did he believe that earth dragons could climb on stone walls. This went beyond all of his beliefs, and it was more absurd than pigs flying. Moving with the breeze technique, he continuously dodged the grey earth dragon that was hot behind his tail. It was a race between a human and a beast. CK, what skin is this? It's so tough. He sought an opportunity to smash his flaming divine fist in. Following a dull noise, he was surprised to find that the earth dragon was not burned to a crisp as he had imagined. Instead, his palm had absorbed the pain. Bright moon in soft breeze, slice. By borrowing strength from gravity, Li Lingtian leaped up the stone wall and repelled the force as he slashed his long sword downwards. A silvery blade glare flickered through the air. The vicious blade glow sliced the earth dragon's claws off, and the earth shook at the howl of the earth dragon. After all, a second-tier level 4 demonic beast was equivalent to a tier 4 warrior spirit. Astounding sword techniques, vast obscure extermination. As the true chi in his body lessened, Li Lingtian knew that he would be ambushed by other warriors if he attempted an escape. So, without further delay, he circulated his true chi to forcefully unleash the astounding sword technique's second form. Immediately, a strange, vast obscure aura that carried a massive sense of destruction tore the air within a 55-yard radius. Detecting the destructive aura, the Earth Dragon's eyes reeked of fear. It let out a howl before it swiftly pounced at Li Lingtian. At that moment, Li Lingtian peacefully yet expressionlessly waved his arm, drawing a line with his sword as several blade shreds burst out. Tzh tzh, tzh tzh. Roar, roar. While sizzling crackles echoed in the air, the rarely petrified Earth Dragon was slammed onto a stone wall by a powerful force. As the intensity wore down, Li Lingtian had long retrieved his sword, or perhaps he never did draw his sword because the velocity was faster than the naked eye. Vast obscure extermination, I finally managed to unleash it. Li Lingtian stared at the Earth Dragon's carcass with a satisfied smile. He had finally succeeded in launching the vast obscure extermination. The second form of astounding sword technique was indeed powerful in its own right. If an Earth Dragon could be killed in a single hit, there was no stopping him against warriors or even warrior spirits. With this move, his abilities were raised to a whole new level and warriors of any tiers would no longer pose a threat to him unless, of course, he encountered an out-of-this-world powerhouse. After adjusting his mindset, he glided down to collect the valuable materials and inner vital on the Earth Dragon. A second-tier level 4 demonic beast was a great find, more so an Earth Dragon with high defense. The skin of an Earth Dragon especially was worth a lot of money. My state came loose. The moment Li Lingtian was about to leave after he had bagged the Earth Dragon's materials, he stopped short with a baffled look on his face. The earlier battle with the Earth Dragon where he had unleashed the vast obscure extermination had loosened up his Tier 6 warrior state. Transforming his body into a breeze, he swiftly left the battlefield. The activity that went on earlier would attract people to draw near. Tier 6 warrior, breakthrough. Go. Half an hour later, Li Lingtian arrived at a cave in the valley with sweat dripping down his face. With a smile, he let out a gentle cry, releasing his body of true chi to push through to Tier 7. The powerful true chi channeled through and brought him to Tier 7 warrior. He had succeeded in advancing to Tier 7. Feeling the powerful true chi in his body, Li Lingtian observed the stark difference between a Tier 6 and Tier 7 warrior. Just the amount of true chi alone was 2 times more than a Tier 6 warrior. Not only that, but the upgraded state also saw a boost in the quality of his true chi. He demonstrated his flaming divine fist. With eagerness over the violent energy, he smashed his flaming fist to a stone wall afar. Following a loud bang, a huge black hole was cracked onto the stone wall. The speed seemed to have picked up a lot. The speed of the flaming divine fist in Tier 7 had almost doubled compared to when he first started. Even the velocity on the circulation of true chi had increased. This meant that his skill could be launched instantaneously without the true chi circulation delaying the time. At the completion of his cultivation, Li Lingtian cautiously unleashed the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. Although it proved a great force, it exhausted far too much true chi. A strike of his fist turned a 12-acre cave into a glacier. Bright moon in soft breeze. Vast obscure extermination. Ice and fire ring. Most of Li Lingtian's true chi had been exhausted by the time he had tried all of his skills. Luckily for him, he had reached Tier 7 or else a single flaming divine fist would have used up almost all of his true chi. After taking all his skills for a spin, he now had half his true chi left. The intensity of his true chi was better than before. I've collected the few ingredients in full, so all that's left is to kill a level 9 demonic beast and collect its blood essence. Li Lingtian took a look inside his storage sack. He had all of the supplies needed to refine a grade 1 vitality pill. There were 7 ingredients altogether and only a bit of blood essence was needed before he could leave 10,000 Demons Valley. Hence, he left the cave and moved forth in search of first-tier demonic beasts. He was not going to refine a pill with a second-tier demonic beast's blood essence as he wanted to avoid wasting precious ingredients. Guruum. Guruum. Rumbling sounds that came from the depths of 10,000 Demons Valley echoed through heaven and earth. Startled, Li Lingtian moved in a flash. The increase of his cultivation level and ability had enhanced a sense of security in him amongst other warriors. After all, great talent had been added to his bold nature. 10 minutes later, Li Lingtian's face turned grave as he peeked inside the valley. He saw 5 youths encircling and attacking a huge demonic beast. Warrior spirit powerhouses. They're all warrior spirits and one of them is a tier 5 warrior spirit. Li Lingtian gasped silently at the scene. All 5 warriors were warrior spirits. The lowest was a tier 2 warrior spirit while the best among them was a tier 5 warrior spirit. The besieged demonic beast was a 20-foot tall green-eyed beast. It was a second-tier level 7 demonic beast. Zhang Wei, Xiao Long, you two restrain it? I'll kill it. Zhou Tianjun saw no progression in the 5 of them laying siege on this demonic beast. In fact, this level 7 demonic beast had gotten the better of them. If this went on, they would definitely be killed by this beast. Senior brother Zhou, I'll help you. Ling Feng, you go restrain the green-eyed beast as well. Wang Hao and Zhou Tianjun exchanged glances before they hastened the speed of their hands. After they gave in their all, they immediately pulled back in preparation to launch a powerful attack against the green-eyed beast. Hurricane Fist. Earthly Chill. 10,000 vines bind, confine it. Without giving Zhou Tianjun and Wang Hao's words another thought, the situation was clear enough for Zhang Wei, Xiao Long, and Ling Feng to circulate their whole body of true qi to unleash their biggest attack without holding back. At a loud howl, the green-eyed beast pressed its huge claws forward encountering the 3 warrior spirits' attacks. The clash caused the forces to spread in the air. Meanwhile, the restrained green-eyed beast had momentarily lost control over its limbs. Sky-perishing spear. Keelan sword. Seizing the perfect timing, Zhou Tianjun swung his arm before a silver spear emerged. The spear emitted a heavy cloud of spiritual qi while amassing domineering energy. Chapter 18. A spiritual equipment, an ordinary spiritual equipment. Zhang Wei and the rest of the group were surprised to see the spear in Zhou Tianjun's hand. It was an ordinary spiritual equipment. An ordinary spiritual equipment was barely attainable by a warrior spirit, yet Zhou Tianjun possessed one in his hand. Li Lingtian too was astonished as it was his first time seeing an ordinary spiritual equipment. It was capable of driving a mighty force in which warriors would usually find difficulty in withstanding. The drive of a spiritual equipment could penetrate through any warrior's defense. Compared to Zhou Tianjun's ordinary spiritual equipment, Wang Hao's Keelan sword was nothing. It was only a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it was still a decent weapon. 2 powerful attacks were launched onto the green-eyed beast. As if it had sensed the threat that was coming its way, the eyes of the green-eyed beast were filled with ferociousness before a strange demonic qi exploded. Letting out a wail, the green-eyed beast spat out a white bead that harbored a gruesome demonic energy that was swiftly rammed towards Zhou Tianjun. Life Bond Inner Vital Attack. The 5 were terrified at the appearance of the white bead, especially for Zhou Tianjun, whose face turned into despair. To begin with, a demonic beast was much stronger than a human, so the Life Bond Inner Vital Attack of a second-tier level 7 demonic beast was definitely devastating. Guruum. Ah, ah, ah. The entire valley shook at the sound of a loud crash. With a glow of destruction, the white inner vital clashed violently onto Zhou Tianjun and turned him into ashes in a blink of an eye. Meanwhile, the other 4 warrior spirits were thrown back by the impact. On the other hand, the ordinary spiritual equipment struck the green-eyed beast. With an 11-foot tall spear penetrating through its head, the green-eyed beast breathed its last breath. The residue impact swept across the valley, turning the trees and flowers into ashes. The 4 warrior spirits fell onto the ground, but not before they spat out a mouthful of blood. A sudden sound broke through the sky and interrupted the peace in the valley as a white figure fluttered through the air. Bright moon in soft breeze, kill. Flaming divine fist, explode. Vast obscure extermination, die. At a flicker of the blade glare followed by a flaming fist, exterminating blade shreds burst out altogether in the blink of an eye and crashed onto 3 of the warrior spirits. Ah! Following the sound of screams, the 3 warrior spirits perished. Yuri, despicable. Ling Feng was without an ounce of true qi in his body. The residue impact from the green-eyed beast's inner vital may not be fatal, but it had wiped out all of his true qi and he was now left with none. All he saw was a young warrior who had become a hunter and was here to steal their thunder after all the hard work they had put in. Humph, there's no such thing as despicable in this world, Li Lingtian coldly blurted. Killing for treasure was the norm in a dog-eat-dog world. Moreover, he merely waited for an opportunity to strike. It was not his problem to deal with if they were unaware of other dangers approaching them while they were engaged in battle. Flaming Divine Fist, die. After that, Li Lingtian pushed forth a flaming Divine Fist, prompting a violent stir in the air. A Tier 3 warrior spirit, despite without true qi, should not be underestimated. Although the flaming Divine Fist crashed down in a loud bang, Li Lingtian found himself with a hardened expression. His flaming Divine Fist came to nothing as it crashed onto the ground, but at this point, Ling Feng had disappeared out of sight. He, I knew of your existence. You're just a warrior, nothing less than an ant before me. Keelan sword, eliminate. Ling Feng stood erected on the valley's stone wall, showing no signs of injury. With a body of true qi in its prime, he drew the Keelan sword and sliced a white light through the sky. Ah, a miscalculation. Instant true qi recovery, not bad. Ice Vitality Divine Fist, freeze him. Surprised, Li Lingtian smiled bitterly from within. Who would have thought Ling Feng had a treasure that was capable of regaining his true qi in an instant? Seeing a Tier 3 warrior spirit's blow in full force, Li Lingtian realized that he could not afford to be careless. A Tier 7 warrior like him was nothing against a Tier 3 warrior spirit who had possession of a mediocre spiritual equipment. With firm resolute, Li Lingtian spun the immemorial ice crystal in him and circulated the Ice Vitality Divine Fist to launch his attack. Immediately, the temperature plunged, turning everything, including the air within a 110-yard radius in the valley, into a glacier. The blade glare fired by the Keelan sword too solidified in the static air, slowing its speed down like a crawling ant. Ice Vitality Warrior Soul, it's impossible. You have a Fire Path Warrior Soul, how can you have Ice Vitality Warrior Soul as well? It had never crossed Ling Feng's mind that this young man could launch such a powerful attack, that the entire valley had been turned to glacier. Even a warrior spirit with an Ice Vitality Warrior Soul was incapable of achieving this. Since this young man had unleashed Fire Path attacks, he must have a Fire Path Warrior Soul, yet he had just demonstrated an Ice Vitality Warrior Soul's attack. Ling Feng's mind completely went blank from the shock. Li Lingtian himself too was taken aback by how his Ice Vitality Divine Fist had frozen the vicinity of over 100 yards. For his first time at unleashing the Ice Vitality Divine Fist, it was quite a feat. Meanwhile, he hastened the speed of his Ice Vitality Divine Fist and blasted it at Ling Feng. He was unaffected inside the glacier because he was the creator of this phenomenon. Ling Feng turned into an ice sculpture and all of his meridians were frozen. With a blow to the ice sculpture, it was smashed to pieces. Consequently, Ling Feng dropped dead to the ground. PFT. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Li Lingtian staggered about. Suddenly, the glacier in the valley disappeared and resumed to the atmosphere as it was before. He had sustained some injuries after releasing a few powerful skills consecutively, which included the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. So it seemed like the Ice Vitality Divine Fist is an Onyx tier skill that can't be controlled by a warrior. The immemorial ice crystal is still too much for me to handle. Li Lingtian thought to himself before he stashed the warrior spirit's storage sacks and sorted out the Earth Dragon's materials. In 10 minutes, Li Lingtian had then left the valley and advanced afar. PFTTZH. Sitting in a cave with his legs crossed, Li Lingtian spat out another mouthful of blood. However, his cheeks gradually regained its pink tint. He had overdone it with the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. The force might be great, but he did not have total control over it. After smooth-henning out the bruises, his injuries had stabilized. He then extended his arm to open the storage sacks and took out the properties that belonged to the warrior spirits he had eliminated earlier. These 5 storage sacks were treasures of warrior spirit powerhouses. Li Lingtian made an inventory and found that he had bagged over 2,000 spiritual stones, 1 mediocre spiritual equipment, Keelan sword, and an ordinary spiritual equipment, sky-perishing spear. The rest were a few inner vitals, low-grade pills, several skills, and some common weapons. There are some good pills. He looked at the several jade bottles in his hands that contained dozens of pills. These were just enough for him to use. Apart from that, the 2 spiritual equipment were of value to him, such as the mediocre spiritual equipment. Keelan sword was a great replacement for his long sword. Oh, I see. It's this little thing. There were 3 blue pills in a purple jade bottle. Based on the information from the pill art, he recognized these pills were blue dust pills. These pills were used to regain a warrior spirit's true chi. Li Lingtian recalled the incident where even after he had launched an attack on Ling Feng, the latter had managed to regain his true chi from complete exhaustion. The reason behind his instant true chi recovery was this blue dust pill. Stalactite of 1,000 years value was the main ingredient to refining a blue dust pill. Limited to 1 usage a day, this blue dust pill could regain a warrior spirit's true chi. Warriors too were not restricted from its effects, but it would be ineffective on any powerhouses above the warrior spirit state. So after storing his spoils, Li Lingtian began to cultivate. There were also some pills he had collected from the warrior spirits that were suitable in treating his injuries, and he chewed on them like candy. An hour later, Li Lingtian opened his eyes. His injuries had completely healed while his true chi had reached its prime. Sky-perishing spear, refine. Li Lingtian took out the sky-perishing spear and hurled it to the air while he gestured a few techniques. He was tempering the treasure, which was basic knowledge to any warrior. With this, the remaining chi on the sky-perishing spear was wiped out by Li Lingtian's divine mindfulness. He then shot a drop of blood essence onto the spear, but as the blood touched the spear, the sky-perishing spear trembled and put up a fight. Clang. After a string of noises followed by a loud ring, the sky-perishing spear simmered down. Letting out a satisfied smile, Li Lingtian connected his divine mindfulness with the sky-perishing spear. Join me and you'll be stronger. An ordinary spiritual equipment was not only unattainable for warrior disciples, but warrior spirits as well. Only a handful of warrior spirits were in possession of a spiritual equipment. Keelan sword, refine. Li Lingtian repeated the same tempering process in refining the Keelan sword. As the Keelan sword was a mediocre spiritual equipment, it was easier to temper than the sky-perishing spear. He had only used the most common weapon while he cultivated the Amber Tier Superior Astounding Sword technique. With this Keelan sword, the force following the sword technique should multiply. Days went by, and in a blink of an eye, he had been in the 10,000 Demons Valley for 2 months now. His current cultivation level had reached the Tier 7 peak warrior state. Pairing his Tier 7's ability and powerful skills with the Keelan sword and sky-perishing spear had enabled him to single-handedly take down even a Tier 2 level 5 or 6 demonic beast. The 6 storage sacks increased, and they were almost filled with inner vitals and ingredients. Now, he had more than enough supplies to refine grade 1 vitality pills and spirit binding pills. Today should be the 7th of June. There are 3 more months until the Sex Grand Tournament. With a smile on his face, Li Lingtian gazed towards the direction of the sect. It was time to return. Lan Binhui's storage sack had a blue fleecing fruit that could advance him a tier further in cultivation. Besides that, he also had 5 spirit binding pills in his possession. For the time being, these pills were sufficient to raise his cultivation level, but it was also time that he began refining pills. Chapter 19. Sitting in a room in a cross-legged position, Li Lingtian's face was drenched with trails of sweat. It had been a month since his return from 10,000 Demons Valley. In that month, he had continuously cultivated with vitality pills, leading his advance from Tier 7 to Tier 8 warrior state. He swallowed the blue fleecing fruit which enabled the powerful spiritual chi to wreak havoc in his body. This blue fleecing fruit was more potent than vitality pills in many ways. Li Lingtian continuously circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation to convert the spiritual chi into true chi before it circled back to his danshan. Tier 9 warrior, breakthrough. He yelled as his body's true chi reached the peak of Tier 8. Under the influence of the heaven and earth reincarnation, his true chi swiftly charged onto Tier 9. Thump. The thud came from within his body and it was so soft, only he could hear it. The moment this sound was heard, his true chi had never been so smooth as it circulated in a hastened flow. I made it? Li Lingtian's smile deepened. Advancing to Tier 9 from Tier 8 was the hardest stage in warrior state. Hence, he had saved the blue fleecing fruit until now. After many vitality pills and a blue fleecing fruit, he finally made it to the highest level, Tier 9 warrior state. In fact, he had used up all the vitality pills he had. The grand tournament, here I come. With his lips curled into a deeper smile, he ventured back into cultivation and began to stabilize his state. It was 8 days later when he finally secured his Tier 9 warrior state. After he had stabilized his state, he then made preparations to refine pills. Pill refinery still remained his main priority. Even the best of geniuses required the aid of pills. Although he was the most curious and fascinated about the blue dust pill, he did not have the formula. Moreover, its main ingredient was 1,000-year stalactite. The stalactite alone was inaccessible to a warrior like him. 1 white jade flower. 1 vitality control grass. 1 purple string fruit. 1 narcissus needle. 1 aerial wind grass. 3 drops of first tier level 9 demonic beast's blood essence. 1 first tier level 9 inner vital. Li Lingtian began by selecting the ingredients. A good apothecary made careful selections to avoid any imperfections on the ingredients as it had a direct effect on the pill's quality and refinery success rate. Rise. He took out his pill tripod as well as around 10 mediocre spiritual stones. A flame appeared and sparked the spiritual stones to burn a white flame under the pill tripod. White jade flower. Vitality control grass. Purple string fruit. Ingredients. After the ingredients were hurled into the pill tripod, the first ingredient dissolved into liquid before a second ingredient was tossed into the mix. For Li Lingtian's first attempt, his technique may be ingenious but his jarring approach was a telltale sign that he was a newbie. Nevertheless, great apothecaries would have their jaws dropped if they ever feasted their eyes on this rather ingenious technique. Bang! I failed. The refinery was a bust. He had failed in his first attempt in pill refinery. Fail. Li Lingtian was baffled after he was led to 3 consecutive failures when he added in the inner vital. However, Li Lingtian was not worked up by the failed attempts. He knew well that regardless of anything, countless failures would eventually lead to success when it came to pill refinery. Let me try refining the inner vital first. The reason behind each failure was due to the extended time in refining the inner vital while the concoction sat for a long period. By then, the brew had burnt. The inner vital was the hardest to refine and this was also the crucial key to why he missed the boat. With the help of his 21st century wisdom, this was not an issue to him. Formulas were fixed but people were not. The formula came from the experience of others so there was no reason as to why he could not change the rules around it. At that thought, Li Lingtian initiated his divine mindfulness to fork out some spiritual stones. He was going to try his hand at refining again. However, this time was different from the last. He reversed the order by beginning with refining the inner vital first. Swish swish, Swish swish. After dissolving into concoction in the pill tripod, the inner vital started to spread a heavy demonic energy. He then hurled a white jade flower into the mix. Soon, 4 ingredients had been added and it stirred a tremendous change in the pill tripod. Swish. With the ingredients and inner vital melted into liquid, the last step was the demonic beast's blood essence. Pouring 3 drops of the blood essence in, the concoction immediately went into overdrive. Indeed. I knew this issue wasn't going to bring me down. Li Lingtian may have a smile on his face, but he kept his emotions in check. One's mentality was most important to an apothecary. Success. The pill tripod tipped open with a soft blast, giving out a fresh medicinal aroma. After taking a look inside the tripod, Li Lingtian was filled with thrill. Peerless Vitality Pill. D*MN, that's awesome. Li Lingtian's mind went blank for a long while at the sight of 13 pure white pills inside the tripod. Although it was his first in pill refinery, the pill art was the most mystical pill refinery treasury in ancient history. The techniques inside were not only extraordinary, but they also had their own unique comprehension and insights on the course of refinery. Yet, he had managed to achieve peerless for this grade 1 vitality pill, considering a peerless vitality pill was out of this world. He soon came to realize that the pills refined with the mystical technique were exceptional because he had used a grade 3 refinery method on a grade 1 pill. In this world, pills were classed as common, superior, or peerless. Pills were normally of the common quality while superior and peerless qualities were unheard of. A superior grade 1 pill was as effective as a substandard grade 2 pill. The effects of a peerless pill, on the other hand, went beyond 2 higher grades due to the absence of impurity in it. The significance of this evolved pill was far above and beyond the imagination of warriors. It had never occurred to him that his first success in pill refinery was of peerless quality. It was an outstanding achievement. Let me try this. Tossing a pill into his mouth, he felt the powerful drug exploding in his body. Although he had never taken a spirit-binding pill, this grade 1 vitality pill was definitely in the same class as the spirit-binding pill. However, regardless of the quality of a grade 1 pill, warriors were capable of digesting it, but the efficacy was definitely more evident than a warrior using a spirit-binding pill. As the strong drug effect began to revolve in his body, Li Lingtian circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation to convert the effect into true qi. Half an hour later, the conversion of the vitality pill's drug effect to true qi was complete. The drug effect had pushed his tier 9 cultivation to its peak, leaving him a step away from perfection. Tier 9 peak warrior? The imperial family's royal princess. Li Lingtian let out a faint smile. These were the words of Nangong Minjia when they came face to face a few months ago. In a period of several months, he too became a tier 9 peak warrior. Even an outer sect elite disciple could not measure up to Li Lingtian's abilities. With 2 spiritual equipment in hand, he could take up a gauntlet against warrior spirits. Let me continue. The true qi in his body flowed at a slow pace after achieving tier 9 peak in cultivation. If his meridians of true qi were like a river before, they were now an ocean of surging true qi. There was still time left before the grand tournament for him to enforce the pill art. Now that he was a tier 9 peak warrior, other grade 1 pills were no longer of use to him and only his peerless pills yielded a result. If he wanted to advance to warrior spirit state, he needed the spirit binding pill. Breaking through to spirit warrior state would be a piece of cake if he could refine the spirit binding pill to peerlessness. Even if peerless spirit binding pills were out of reach, he must at least refine it to a common or superior quality. In a repeated cycle of heating the tripod, refinery, and success, the ingredients for vitality pills were quickly exhausted. Nevertheless, Li Lingtian's stock on pills began to pile up. Grade 2 spirit binding pill. Success. Li Lingtian became adept in his techniques after 2 weeks of refining grade 1 vitality pills. The exquisite technique and unique refining process had led to better quality pills and shorter amounts of time spent on refinery. Finally, when Li Lingtian managed to refine his first tripod of spirit-binding pills, he was all smiles. These are superior spirit-binding pills. There were 8 superior spirit-binding pills. Different from grade 1 pills, refining grade 2 pills was on a whole different level. It required accumulated experience, and despite mastering exquisite techniques, experience was imperative. After a thrill of excitement, Li Lingtian stored the pills as well as the remaining ingredients and pill tripod into his storage sack. He straightened out his clothes before he headed out. Chapter 20. In Skycloud Sect, the peripheral and outer sect disciples stuck together. The area where they cultivated and lay their heads may be apart, but the disciples were normally found together. With a smile on his face, Li Lingtian left the room and walked towards the square in the outer sect. He had quite a number of inner vitals to exchange for spiritual stones. Warriors were seen cultivating around the square, while some were taking a break in groups of 3s or 4s. The welfare chamber was at the edge of the square, so one had to pass through the square in order to get there. At that moment, Li Lingtian was taking a leisure stroll. "Huh, isn't this our senior brother Li?" Following the mocking comment, a figure quickly came before Li Lingtian, sized him and gave him a scornful look. Zhang Tian was a genius among the peripheral disciples who had better talent than Li Lingtian, but both of them had achieved Tier 10 peak warrior apprentice state at the same time. Zhang Tian had always wanted to gain the upper hand over Li Lingtian, yet only landed neck to neck with him. When the duo attempted their leap forward to a higher state, Li Lingtian failed while Zhang Tian advanced to warrior state and became an outer sect disciple. The advancement earned him pills and spiritual stones to develop to a Tier 4 warrior in less than a year. After returning from isolated cultivation, Zhang Tian was gratified to receive news that Li Lingtian could never become a warrior. Though, it was a pity that he had yet encountered Li Lingtian to humiliate him, until now. "Junior brother Zhang, is this the piece of trash you were talking about? He's indeed a good-for-nothing. Don't a good-for-nothing like you bring shame to Skycloud Sect by remaining here? Haven't you given up?" Soon, the few disciples who were with Zhang Tian sized Li Lingtian up. As Li Lingtian was a Tier 9 peak warrior, they could not detect his cultivation level, corroborating with the fact that Li Lingtian was a good-for-nothing. "Will you die if you don't speak?" Li Lingtian glanced back at these warrior disciples with disdain. Then, with a smile on his face, he trod ahead. He did not have time for these Tier 4 and 5 warriors. *Amit, you piece of trash. Who do you think you are? I am a Tier 4 warrior while you're nothing. How dare you act arrogant in front of me? I'll spare your life if you come over here and bow to me 3 times. Taken aback by Li Lingtian's words, Zhang Tian blew a fuse in the presence of smiling faces. "I'm in a good mood, so, you annoying flies, get lost." Li Lingtian's smile deepened at sight of Zhang Tian and his group blocking his way. His cold eyes swept past all of them. During this time, many of the disciples in the square looked their way. These peripheral and outer sect disciples hated to miss out on the fun and wanted in on the action. Sigh, if he's a piece of trash, what's considered a genius then? A Tier 6 warrior disciple looked towards Li Lingtian with fear but, too, gloated at the misfortune that was to come for Zhang Tian and his party. He had witnessed Li Lingtian's tactics against a Tier 9 warrior and a warrior spirit in the life or death canyon. These trash had nothing on Li Lingtian. "Senior brother Zhang Tian, teach him a lesson. Why don't you take a guess on how long the good-for-nothing can last in battle? Senior brother Zhang Tian, please show mercy. Don't kill him, he's an aristocrat of the empire after all." Countless disciples gathered around in heated discussion. Some even called out to Zhang Tian, for him to teach Li Lingtian a lesson. This was a world of survival of the fittest. Li Lingtian may be a genius before, but now that he was a good-for-nothing, he was held in contempt and became the target to be made fun of. "Hee. You good-for-nothing, I'll count to 3. You can either kneel down or go all the way down." Zhang Tian was swelling with pride to hear the disciples addressing him as a senior. With his head held high, he sneered at Li Lingtian. "You have 3 seconds to kneel down to me or forever rest on your backs." The taunting eyes of countless disciples caused Li Lingtian's expression to stiffen. In this dog-eat-dog world, only the strongest would be respected. He did not transmigrate all the way here only to live a cowardly life. Whoa! Amid the uproar, the spectating disciples were dumbfounded. For a good-for-nothing to speak that way to a warrior, he must be either out of his mind or had given up on life. 3. Without hesitation, Li Lingtian coldly blurted. 1. Rest eternally then. He swung his arm and drew out the Keelan sword to strike a chilling glow. By the time the chilling glare disappeared, Li Lingtian was walking away without giving the 4 warriors on the ground another glance. Ugh! As cries of Zhang Tian's group rang in their ears, the other disciples were gobsmacked. A good-for-nothing had crippled 4 warriors, yet no one saw how Li Lingtian did it. Is this what you call a good-for-nothing? Is he for real? Is there such a thing as a powerful piece of trash? What is a genius then? He only counted 2 numbers before making a move. This isn't fair. Although the disciples in the square had returned to their senses, they were still in shock. They could not help but quiver in fear as they watched Li Lingtian's receding figure. Fortunately for them, they did not drive Li Lingtian up a wall. "I make the rules, so I'll do as I please," Li Lingtian replied dully before he walked towards the welfare chamber. The earlier incident may be merely a minor affair to Li Lingtian, but it was a cliffhanger for the many peripheral and outer sect disciples. Not many of them knew about the incidents where Li Lingtian had defeated a few warrior disciples as well as Yang Tianfeng. Now that this had happened in the square, the majority of disciples had first-hand experienced Li Lingtian's capabilities. They were all curious about how a good-for-nothing was able to defeat all odds. Arriving at the welfare chamber, Li Lingtian exchanged all of his inner vitals and materials for spiritual stones. However, instead of Zuzikan, the trade was hosted by a warrior spirit. This was because the items Li Lingtian traded were mostly materials of second-tier demonic beasts, and it did not fall on Zuzikan's jurisdiction. "These are from the demonic beasts you killed." Wang Tianzong turned solemn at the content reveal of Li Lingtian's storage sack. He could not have killed these demonic beasts himself. These were mostly inner vitals and materials of second-tier demonic beasts. Only a handful of them belonged to first-tier demonic beasts. Is there a need for senior brother to learn the source of these materials and inner vitals? Li Lingtian asked. Although Wang Tianzong was infuriated by this warrior disciple's confrontation, he did not possess the authority to question the origins of these materials. Darting a cold stare at Li Lingtian, Wang Tianzong began to sort the inner vitals. 21 first-tier inner vitals. 37 second-tier inner vitals. It would be 9,500 mediocre spiritual stones. Wang Tianzong made an inventory of the materials before he responded. He then turned his gaze to Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian nodded without uttering a word. The inner vital of below first-tier level 5 demonic beast was 10 apiece, while level 5 and above was 100 spiritual stones. It was 200 spiritual stones for the inner vital that ranked less than second-tier level 5, the same principles applied for the other materials. Wang Tianzong did not rip him off. Many warriors were in conversation about the grand tournament when Li Lingtian made his way out of the welfare chamber with 9,500 mediocre spiritual stones. The inner sect and outer sect disciples would be taking part in the grand tournament. I heard that the peripheral disciples who had reached the warrior stage will become outer sect disciples in the upcoming tournament. The top 10 outer sect disciples will advance to the inner section. The real competition is still between the inner sect disciples. The inner sect disciples are fighting to rank high in the sect. The higher the ranking, the better the resources, so of course, it's going to be a fierce competition. It's a shame I'm in the outer sect, I don't have a chance to go into the inner section. However, the grand tournament this time is for the disciples to fight for a spot to go to Hidden Dragon Isle. The Hidden Dragon Isle is opened once every century and this is that year. It's no wonder that the grand tournament is moved ahead by a month. It must be for the Hidden Dragon Isle. It's said that only warriors below the age of 30 can enter the Hidden Dragon Isle. Anyone older than 30 would be blasted to smithereens by the structure inside. Yeah, but Skycloud sect only has a quota for 200 disciples. There's only 200 spots yet there are 150 inner sect warrior spirit geniuses. That leaves the remaining quota up for grabs by other disciples. The faces of many disciples engaged in conversations lit up in excitement. They were itching to try their hand and show off their skills. I see. I must secure a spot to go to the Hidden Dragon Isle. Li Lingtian stopped at his tracks after picking up on the disciples' discussion. The Hidden Dragon Isle was the most magical standalone dimension in Eastern Spirit Greenland and it was opened once every century. The countless treasures and medicine supplies in the isle satisfied the need for ingredients to refine higher-graded pills. However, opportunity and danger came hand in hand. After all, the existence of valuable medicinal supplies attracted dangerous demonic beasts, unknown danger, as well as fellow men that would kill for treasure. Opened once every century, the rich spiritual chi in the isle nourished many valuable medicinal supplies, prompting gruesome demonic beasts and many elite forces to chisel their way in. However, concerned that this resource would be taken over by other forces and for the balance within forces, the warrior leaders from the 4 great empires in Eastern Spirit Greenland came to an agreement to restrict the headcount to no more than 10,000. In Sky Dragon Empire alone, there were the 4 super forces and many reclusive families. The quota of 10,000 was simply too little. Skycloud sect may be powerful but it was only an omnipotent existence in Sky Dragon Empire. The sect was still a distance from the super sects in other empires. Hence, they only managed to obtain 200 spots. Warriors who were below the age of 30 could step foot into the Hidden Dragon Isle, whereas those past the age of 30 would be eliminated by the stricture at the dimensional entrance. Warrior King, Warriors Ascendants, and even Warrior Emperors were no exception to this restriction. No one dared to take the risk. The highest tier warrior within the 30 years old was at most a warrior king, yet there were 4th and 5th tier demonic beasts prowling around the isle. They were a dangerous presence in the isle. Part 2 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.